Please join me in welcoming Kat Steinmetz.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kat Steinmetz, Director of Global Talent Success here at Box. So I'm so excited to be with you all this morning. So honored to be at the People Innovator Summit, and thank you Udemy. And to really talk about a subject that I'm super passionate about and have been for a really long time, and that's transformational leadership. So let me start out by telling you a little bit about me and who I am. So I grew up with very progressive hippie parents in a kind of cooperative type community, and early on learned about the value of creating community and seeing others beyond my parents as leaders. And I was taught critical thinking and emotional intelligence early on in alternative type schools, where children were really seen as leaders of their own learning. And so I got to really start to drive my own learning for myself at an early age. And my dad was a teacher at some of these alternative schools and was an early practitioner of yoga and meditation, way before it was very cool to do so. So I was kind of in that sort of household. And as I continued to grow up, I was really continuing to be under that sort of influence and that sort of transformational type of community and family, and also alternative schools. And in junior high, I was a part of a experiential improv theater troupe with my school. And we toured the state, giving interactive performances around the state. And they were very interesting, very experiential. We were able to really involve the audience and get them kind of like up out of their seats and trying different things, and again, experiences this transformation within themselves. And as part of that, I really got to actually lead a lot of that. Me and the students were allowed a lot of autonomy and a lot of agency to really organize the tour, plan the, all the performances, make that all come together, and we were guided by a transformational leader type teacher. As I continued to grow up and got to college, I met my husband there, and we were a part of this alternative part of the orientation program called New Student Weekend. And there we took students camping for the weekend. So not your typical at college where you just go to orientation with your parents. So we got to take them off campus, be together, and we really got to create these sort of experiential bonding and leadership activities where they were able to experience a deeper, more vulnerable side of themselves that maybe they had never experienced before, right? So it was very transformative to be in that. And they got to sort of come out of that weekend feeling like they were bonded with people, they had trust with people, they felt belonging at the school before they had even started. And we really found that a lot of those students did better or very well in school and became really engaged, were retained there and kind of stayed on there. And so we, again, as students, were able to really guide and lead and organize and plan all of those activities in that whole entire weekend, really guided by just a transformational leader who allowed a lot of that autonomy, that ability to really understand that we could do the work, right? And so they thought the best of us in that. So as I continue to kind of move on in my life, in my 30s, my husband and I became performers and musicians under the moniker of Kepi and Kat. And we have performed all over the world in clubs and parades and experiential events and festivals. One of those big ones being Burning Man. So, and as you'll see, sort of the last picture here, that's me at Burning Man with my dad and my son and my husband in a very, typical family portrait, right? Everybody has this, with the Burning Man in the background. And I have performed many, many times at Burning Man and have been attending since 2003. Yay, burners! I love that. So Burning Man is where I really learned the most, I think, in this sort of like putting it all together way. I was able, about transformational leadership, right? So I was able to really apply my full background and experiences as in my role as the Burning Man Project's head of HR for 10 years. And in case anyone here isn't familiar, Burning Man is an experiential counterculture arts event that happens in the Black Rock Desert of Nevada for 1 week annually in August. And Burning Man is a permission machine to be curious about what is possible, about what you can do, about what you can try out, or how you can experiment, what the things are that are possible for you, to try them, to see what works and what doesn't work, to interact with things, with each other in a very quick, sort of transformative way. And so it really allows you to be in that curiosity. It's part of the principles of the event to innovate, to radically express yourself. And it's really, Burning Man is what you make it, and the future is what you make it, and you feel that when you're there. So as you know, in my role there as the head of HR, but also as a performer, as a participant, as everyone is there, I experienced, I observed, I created so much transformation. And again, it happened so fast and so intensely there on the playa. And I think coming out of those experiences for so many years, I had this strong desire and passion to really want to take what I learned there, what I experienced there, and bring that out in the world, as many people do that come there. And I had this strong desire to want to take it to other companies, right? How could I take what the magic, the essence of what happens in the playa, and bring it to a company in an innovative way to really apply strong business impact and ROI? So I wanted to kind of put that transformation into something that you could actually see how it would work out, you know, beyond just sort of that magical essence on the playa. And so many companies have started and flourished by a spark of an idea that happened at Burning Man. One of the famous ones of those is certainly Google. The first Google Doodle was of Burning Man, and Larry Page and Sergey Brin are longtime dedicated burners, and who really believe in sort of like what happens out there. One of those key things is the group flow state. And what that really means is a group that is in peak performance. So there's this flow that happens, like you've heard about athletes, right? But teams get in that too. And they have this, you know, state, you probably all experience that, where you're in a brainstorm and it's amazing and all the ideas are coming. They experience that a lot, all the time out at Burning Man. And so they infamously actually took future CEO Eric Schmidt out there, first to see if he could handle it, two, to see if he would actually flourish and have a good time, but also if he understood what that group flow state was and that he could bring it back and actually make it happen at Google. And we certainly know how that all turned out for him. So now that you know a bit more about me, I want to talk to you a little bit about you and your personal transformation. So I want to do an activity that will have you experience a bit of transformation in just a few minutes with each other. So let's experiment together and have some fun with me, okay? So we're going to do this activity that lets you experience for yourself the importance and power of language. How the words we say really shape our consciousness and what we believe and feel about our environment. And that the transformative power of language comes alive for you, in yourself. So what I want you to do in just a minute is I want you to turn to a partner next to you, just somebody very easy within the vicinity, and I want you to share your to-do list for next week. So if you have meetings, travel, work products, deliverables, family obligations, whatever they might be, just share with a partner. Each of you will take a few, probably 15, 20 seconds to share what your to-do list is for next week. Okay, everybody good? Ready? And go. All right. So how was that? How did that feel when you were talking about your to-do list? How did it feel? Words. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed. Busy. Any other feelings that you felt?
Fun. We were talking about parties.
Okay, a party. That's cool. Cool. Any other words that came to mind? You're amazed how much you could do. Great. Okay, so this is not obviously an exercise for you to test how well you know your to-do list, right? But an activity on the transformative power of language to influence your consciousness and the experience of yourself. So, I wonder how many of you used reactive language when you spoke to your partner, saying things like, I have to, I'm supposed to, I've been told to, I need to. Show of hands. How many of you are kind of using reactive language when you're talking about? A lot of hands. Okay. Great. And now I wonder how many of you actually use proactive language when talking through your to-do list. Things like I get to, I'm looking forward to, party people I know were, I can, I will, right? How many of you are actually using those words? Probably less, huh? A few people. Okay, so we're going to do this activity again. You're going to turn to the same partner, but you're going to use only proactive language when you talk about it. Just these kinds of words. Okay, same idea. You're going to do it, switch, come back to me. All right, go. So how was it this time? How did you feel when you did that? How did you feel? Happier, excited. What other things? More positive. Yes. So what's important to note, though, is that you only change your language. You did not change your to-do list, right? I didn't wave the magic wand and your to-do list is now gone. You still have the same things to do. But your relationship to how you feel about that to-do list is probably at least a bit different, if not a lot different. And so really that's the power, right, of using this proactive language. You're able to actually change your relationship so that you feel more empowered, more positive, more in choice, more excited, right, about the things that you're doing, right, because you're choosing to do those things. And really that's the power of transformation. So what is transformational leadership and what is it not? So let's start by talking about transactional versus transformational leadership. Transactional leadership is the exact opposite of transformational leadership. It really relies heavily on authority and on motivating employees through rewards and punishments. And it's what a lot of us have probably experienced as command and control. And so this leadership model does not try to innovate, right? It's really rooted in keeping things consistent. It's supervision, oversight, monitoring, right? It's very good for things that are specific, that need to be precise, maybe like a financial audit. But it does not allow for innovation or future planning in the same way that transformational leadership will. And transformational leadership, on the other hand, really supports those agile environments, leaves people free to come up with new ideas for how to, deal with the future of products, deal with services in an innovative way. So transformational leadership inspires, that's such a key word, others to motivate, change, and develop themselves. So it's not about us trying to motivate others. I don't believe we actually can motivate others. I think we can only inspire them to motivate themselves and to change in a sustainable way, in that intrinsic way, right? Otherwise, it's extrinsic, and it's a very short-term motivation, and probably not one that they're completely invested in. And so research really clearly shows that groups led by transformational leaders have higher level of performance and satisfaction than groups led by other ones. It's a common misunderstanding that transformational leaders are soft. But the truth is they actually constantly challenge followers through higher levels of performance. And why? Because transformational leaders hold positive expectations for their followers, believing they can actually do it and do their best. And as a result, they inspire, they empower. They really believe and stimulate followers to exceed those normal levels of performance. And they focus on and care about followers and their personal needs. So they're both confident and caring leaders. So what can you all be doing in your own organizations to bring this to life? How can you make this right for transformational leadership in your own organization? So I want to walk through 3 key ways, not the only ways, but 3 key ways that I've certainly found that you can do this in your own organizations. Creating a learning culture of innovation, leadership development for all, and building resilient leaders. So let's talk through those. So starting with a learning culture of innovation. First, I think it's important to say that innovation is a culture. It is not a skill. Intentionally cultivating that learning culture allows innovation to happen more freely as a way of being, as part of the DNA of your company. And transformational leadership is the catalyst, is the enabler for how this continues to come to life. So Larry Harvey, the original founder of Burning Man, he wrote the Burning Man 10 Principles in 2004 as a way to guide regional networks of the burns that happen kind of all throughout the world and throughout the year beyond the one that happens on the playa. And the principles are very prominent in both the Burning Man organization and in the international community as a way of being and living throughout the year. So 2 that really highlight this concept of a learning culture of innovation are immediacy and participation. So I want to actually walk through kind of what those actually look like so that you can understand what the value is really. So immediacy, that immediate experience is in many ways the most important touchstone of value in the Burning Man culture. And we seek to overcome barriers that stand between us and a recognition of our inner selves, that reality of those around us, and that participation in society and contact with the natural world exceeding human powers. No idea can substitute for this experience. So participation in our community is committed to a radically participatory ethic. We believe that transformative change, whether in the individual or in society, can occur only through the medium of deeply personal experience. We achieve being through doing, and everyone is invited to work. Everyone is invited to play. We make the world real through actions that open the heart. So those are the two values, and again, those really talk about that transformative change, right? That experience, that immediacy, the way to participate as the way of transformation, a lot like we just experienced here a few minutes ago. So it's that bringing that to life through your values, through that way. And as we know, principles and values cannot just be written on a slide or on your office wall, right? So they need to be lived and modeled every day. And here are our values at Box. And besides being really cleverly written statements, which I think they are, we've also described the behaviors under each and are now creating learning experiences for all of them that let people really experience each value and what it means to them, right? And how it comes to life. And for creating a learning culture of innovation, we have take risks, fail fast, get stuff done. And we also have bring your blank self to work. So again, talks about experimenting, learning, growth mindset, your ability to try things, see how it goes. What are you going to learn from it? And then how do you bring your whatever you are to work, right? How do you belong here? Bring who you are. We love that, and we want you here for who you are. So this is how we behave with each other every day. This is how we hold each other accountable to these behaviors. And at Burning Man, this concept is called acculturation, and which is so much more powerful, right, than just a sign on the wall. And for all of you, what are you actively doing in your organizations to bring your values to life every day with people? Do your values speak to you having a growth mindset, a learning culture, being truly innovative? How are you holding each other accountable to the behaviors that are actually under your cleverly written statements? We also have an ecosystem of developing careers at Box that spans across the life cycle of the 3 E's, education, experience, and exposure, which goes beyond just classes. So I'm going to walk through a few of what that actually is. On the education side, we want to create those scalable learning opportunities that really equip our Boxers to the skills needed to maximize their impact. And we have all kinds of ways of doing that, including Udemy, which we love and use. We also have a brand new program called Accelerate. And this is a high-touch cohort program that's year-long that really accelerates the transition of new levels of leadership for a new leader. So a new manager, a new director, a new VP. It includes coaching, mentorship, a business project, and a graduation showcase, and along with our full manager track of curriculum. So we infuse concepts of transformational leadership and activities throughout what we do as an experience, right? And so they, again, get to experience that transformation in themselves, just like you did here today. We also teach the value of being a confident and caring leader, which is a hallmark of a transformational leader. Along with that, there's also experience. So beyond just classes, learning happens every day in experiences and exposure to new people and ideas. And so again, lots of ways we go about that. Community being one of the big ones. Box is very big on community. We have our employee resource groups, our employee interest groups, as well as our chief fund officers in each regional office. And we also have a partnership with our nonprofit side of our organization, box.org, to create leadership development experiences that not only teach people through experiences, but do good in the world. And so it really allows, again, that different kind of transformational experience where somebody can walk out of the office, get out of the classroom, and actually experience something a different way as the leader within themselves. And then as far as exposure, right, we want to give access to leaders for different ways that they can, experience new levels of their leadership. So one of the great examples of that is BoxWorks. And that's our big conference that happens at Moscone Center, and it just happened 2 weeks ago. And so there's lots of exposure opportunities to speak in front of large audiences, teach a breakout, moderate a panel, be a part of an executive briefing, be a volunteer, be a part of the community events that are happening. So again, you're really exposing somebody to something different than just sitting at their desk, right, and doing their role. So now let's talk about leadership development for all. What I mean by this is that everyone at your company should have access to leadership and leadership development in some way. Otherwise, you have all of this untapped potential just kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting to be developed. And they're just waiting there, right? Waiting to be discovered, waiting to get that development. So how are you really helping your people to have access to leadership at every level and every access point, instead of just your executives or your hypos? At Box, we have 4 key leader mindsets of business, self, teams, and community. And this is all powered by our values as well. These pillars and behaviors are for all Boxers, right? So everyone has access to this, and everyone is held accountable to these. Not just leaders, not just hypos, not just executives. Everyone knows that this is the kinds of behaviors that I need to actually bring about in myself. I need to develop in myself. I need to look for. And so we use this framework across our 3 E's of education, experience, and exposure that we just went through. One of the ways that we really do that is we have Box LearnFest, which is our primary learning delivery platform for all Box education classes and learning activities. LearnFest is a global learning event that happens 3 times a year, where Boxers go to get all of their learning in a week-long conference-like event. And it happens at each of our 6 regional hubs around the world. And it's a really fun thing, right? So it's not just like enroll for a class and go to the class. Balloons, there's like meals that are named different things from what the learning is. There's community events going on. There's all kinds of things that are happening. So people look forward to the fun of it as well as the experience of it, as well as getting their learning. And they know they can go those 3 times a year to get their learning, and they can count on those times. And then my team can also count on where we're going to be doing all of our learning. So it helps, and it's a win-win for everybody. But again, every Boxer has access to learning activities with these 4 key leader mindsets of business, self, teams, and community. So it's not a title, right? It's like leadership is a mindset, not a title. And so it really makes me think of Stitch Fix. When I was there, we created that belief that leadership is a mindset and not a title. And so it allows everyone access to leadership in some way. So even warehouse employees, stylists that work part-time out of their home, they all had some access point to leadership or leadership development in some way. So everyone aspired to be a leader in some way in their role. So the last of the 3 key ways that you can bring transformational leadership to your orgs is by putting an emphasis towards building resilient leaders. This is such an important one. So why does this matter? Why does resilience matter? Why is it important? In this highly complex world of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, people are now more than ever susceptible to stress, exhaustion, overwhelm. I think we heard these words when we did the activity earlier. And so how do we help people calibrate their engagement without total burnout? And in the face of challenge, why do some people flourish while other people fold? So the essential condition required to live a flourishing life is not found in the absence of complexity or change or challenge. That's not really changing, right? But rather in a person's response to the experiences that are placed in their own path. And so in particular, a person's willingness to really engage in practices that build resilience. Rather than just a mindset, resilience is also behaviors that can be taught. And that's a newer actually thing in research. And so you can really start looking at ways that you can build those. And the myth is that resilience is bouncing back, right? It's passive. You sort of, time heals all wounds, and then you sort of are okay after it all goes away. The truth is that really, resilience is really the willingness to endure challenge. And as a result, to allow ourselves to be fundamentally and forever changed from that, yielding greater compassion, wisdom, strength, and empathy, such that you never go back to that person that you were before, right? We don't bounce back. Really, it's about bouncing forward. How do we take what we learned and actually thrive and become an even better, more elevated, more developed person? Also, resilience is active. It's a muscle that can be built, right, with work and effort. And it's also a muscle that can atrophy without any effort. And so resilience is dynamic. It's not that we're all inoculated with resilience at birth, right? It's really about how can we build it and change it over time. So now let's bring it back to you, and I want to do one more activity that will help you sort of see this idea of resilience and bring it to life. So we created this activity as part of our day-long leadership offsite at Stitch Fix, where every single person, every full-time employee attended that day-long offsite as part of their onboarding within their first 30 days. From the receptionist to the CTO, every person went to that, and they were all together in one group, and they were led by leaders within the company as the facilitators. And we really called it a rehire moment. It allowed our leaders that were teaching it to know that they wanted to still be at this company. It was so incredible. It was so transformative for them to watch the transformation. Also for our brand new employees to say, I came to the right company. A company that would actually take me away for a day and do this and let me experience this with all of these people. Okay, so in a moment, I'm gonna ask for a volunteer to come up to the front of the room and answer these 3 questions here with me on stage. So my greatest current personal challenge as a leader is, my greatest personal weakness as a leader is, my biggest failure in the last 24 months and the consequences of this mistake are. And if someone doesn't volunteer, I will call on someone. Who would like to come up and answer this? All right, we have a volunteer. You are courageous and bold. And you can also relax and go back to your seat. Amazing. Good job. We always end up getting somebody, so thank you for volunteering. You can now all relax because none of you are going to have to come and do this. Whew, right? It did take a while to get that volunteer. So what are you experiencing right now? Scan your system. Scan your mental and physical state. What are the things that come up for you that you were experiencing while you were thinking, like, am I going to have to come up there? Is she going to call on somebody? What were you experiencing?
It's somewhat anticlimactic, right? Because you're actually starting to work with those questions, and then.
Yep. What other things were you feeling? What was like coming up for you in your body while you were thinking you might have to come up and actually answer that? Heart rate up. Yeah. Sweaty palms. Dry mouth. What? Tight shoulders. Any other things? Yeah, so in response to answering these 3 questions during a pretty safe leadership workshop, I think, your body produced a moderate threat response, right? A fight or flight, as if a tiger might jump out and actually get you at any moment. So what's happening there? As we're talking about, right, resilience is built and expanded through vulnerability, through challenge, through courage. In that activity, what were you afraid of? What did you have a physiological reaction to? What is the fear? Is the fear about judging yourself, about being judged? If experience of fear is so unpleasant, why do we do it at all? Why do we take any risks? Why do we do it? Thoughts?
To get somewhere.
To get somewhere. Totally. What other things? Why do we do this? Why do we try to challenge ourselves? Adrenaline. Great. Performance, right? Growth. Yes. Innovation. Being the best. Trying something new. Learning. Right? That's why we do it. And so we learn the most when we're challenged, not when we're comfortable. And so in that comfort zone, while that can be sort of nice for a while, it's sort of like you're dialing it in, right? You're just sort of like chilling and hanging out. There's not really much that's being challenged. So you're sort of at like half ability for performance. On the other end of the spectrum, at the more extreme area, is that danger zone, where like what you just had, but you're in that all the time, right? Where you're in total fear, which is also not good. Because then you're very narrow, you can't be creative, and you're almost catatonic, right? So you can't get anything done either. So what it's all about is being in this performance zone. It's being in the middle there. And that's really where we transform and elevate ourselves to the next level. It's where we want all of our leaders to be, and really all our people. How do we do that? right? How do we build these resilient behaviors? How do we have the experiences like we did here today so that the next time someone does a similar activity and asks you to come up and actually answer questions like that in front of a bunch of people, you probably won't have quite the same response because you already had it, right? So you've built a little bit of that resilience in order to know that next time, okay, I could do it maybe, right? It would be a little less scary. And so it really builds this resilience. Like the next time that happens, you know you'll be able to do it. And it builds your grit and it builds your perseverance. So we talked about 3 key ways to really support the cultivation of transformational leadership in your organizations. These are all things that you can go back tomorrow and start working towards. Creating that learning culture of innovation. Have you built out behaviors for your values? Have you built values? Have you created experiences like the ones we did here to really help people experience their own transformation intrinsically, to know who they are and experience themselves in new ways? And leadership development for all. How can you start giving all of your people, no matter what their level, some access to leadership development, be accountable to that in some way, regardless of who they are in the company? And then building resilient leaders. How are you building those resilient behaviors in your leaders to really allow transformational leadership to flourish and people to experience themselves in these new and elevated ways? All right, so I want to thank you all for your engagement, your willingness to experience with me, and experience your own transformation. Thank you so much. Go out and do great things in the world with us.